The monetary system just showed you a crack, and most people are staring at the gold chart like that crack doesn't matter. Here's what happened. In the last 24 hours, metals pushed back toward their recent highs again, gold grinding higher, silver hovering near the kind of prices that make everyone suddenly feel like a top is here. And the moment that happens, the same thought hits a million brains at once. Sell, lock it in, take profits, don't round trip it. That reflex is not wisdom, it's conditioning. Because if the measuring stick is melting, then profit measured in that stick is a mirage. And if you sell real money to go back into the promises that are failing, you might be making the cleanest mistake of your entire financial life. Welcome back. This is where we strip the emotion out and replace it with a framework you can actually use. Quick favor before we go deeper. Subscribe. Short, simple, and it keeps you in the loop when the next phase hits fast. Now hold this cliffhanger in your mind while we build the case. What if the best exit from gold and silver is not a price, but a ratio? What if you don't sell metals at all? You exchange them for assets when the world misprices everything else. Because that's the real game in a breakdown. Let's say it plainly. Most people are asking the wrong question. They're asking, when should I sell my gold and silver? But the better question is, what am I trying to own on the other side of this? If your answer is more cash, you are aiming at the most fragile target in the room. Cash is not a destination in a credibility crisis. Cash is a hallway. Sometimes it's a trap. And here's why. Fiat currency is born from debt. Every new unit enters the world as an IOU. It is a liability wearing a costume. Gold and silver are not liabilities. They don't require a counterparty to stay solvent. They don't require a central bank to stay honest. They don't require a politician to keep a promise they can't afford. That's why, when the system gets stressed, people don't run to more promises. They run to what exists. And before you roll your eyes and think this is just retail talk, look at behavior. When stress rises, the big institutions don't sprint toward more paper claims. They look for settlement assets that don't default. They look for insurance that doesn't depend on someone else's balance sheet. You don't need to worship any famous investor. You don't need a guru. You just need to understand incentives. If the debt pile is unpayable without devaluation, the devaluation becomes policy. Quiet at first, then obvious. So here's the core idea. Gold and silver are not a trade you flip. They are stored purchasing power you deploy when the world offers you something insane in return. That is not semantics. That is survival math. Now let me hit you with an image you will not forget. Imagine you're on a ship in open ocean. The music is still playing. People are still gambling. Some are even bragging about the buffet. But you can feel the tilt. You can hear the creaks. You can see the crew moving faster than usual. Gold and silver are the lifeboats. Gold is the compact lifeboat, high value in a small space, fewer seats, more efficient. Silver is the bigger, heavier lifeboat, more seats, more weight, more bulk, but accessible to more people, and historically used as everyday money when systems get weird. Now tell me, if you knew the ship was taking on water, would you throw your lifeboat overboard because someone offered you casino chips for it? That's what taking profits into fiat is, when the monetary order is under strain. So when do you sell? You don't sell because the price looks high. You exchange when the lifeboat can buy you something better than safety. Better than safety means control, stability, productive ownership, and reduced dependency on the very system that's cracking. That is the target. And I promised you something practical, not vibes. So here is the framework. 3 signals, easy to remember, easy to apply, no guessing tops. Signal 1, the system signal. Signal 2, the ratio signal. Signal 3, the personal signal. Let's walk them fast. System signal. Is the machinery stable or is it wobbling? You'll see this first in the boring places. Bonds are supposed to be the quiet room, the adult room, the room that doesn't scream. When long-term government bonds start moving like risk assets, when yields jump, when volatility spikes, when auctions look shaky, your stable foundation is sending a flare. Why does that matter? Because governments are massive debt structures. Rising rates make that debt heavier. Heavier debt forces choices, and the choices are always the same 3. Cut spending hard, raise taxes hard, or create money. Cut too hard and growth breaks. Tax too hard and social stability breaks. So the path of least resistance becomes the path of stealth, financial repression, rates below real inflation, savers paying the bill quietly. the currency doing the bleeding for the system. That's not conspiracy, that's arithmetic. So if your system signal is flashing red, debt stress, rising volatility, currency weakness, central banks acting defensive, why would you reduce your insurance? You don't cancel the fire insurance while smoke is leaking under the door. Ratio signal. Stop asking, is gold expensive? Ask, what does gold buy? Because a metal price chart is not the full story. The real story is the exchange value against real assets. How many ounces of gold buys an average home where you live? How many ounces of silver buys a reliable vehicle? How many ounces buys a small business that produces cash flow? How many ounces buys farmland, tools, inventory, a rental property, energy equipment, a debt-free roof over your family? If those ratios move to extremes, meaning real assets become cheap in metal terms, that's your window. And here's the twist that destroys most people. They buy houses when houses are expensive in gold terms because the fiat price feels normal. They buy stocks when stocks are expensive in gold terms because the index is making new highs. They chase the scoreboard. You watch the ratios. Personal signal. Your life is not a spreadsheet. If you have an emergency, if you need medical care, if you need to stabilize your family, if you have an opportunity to buy a productive asset at a favorable ratio, then yes, you may exchange a portion. The goal is not to die holding perfect coins. The goal is to convert stored purchasing power into a stronger life. Now here's where we get dangerous, because this is where people sabotage themselves. They treat metals like a lottery ticket. They obsess over calling tops. They want the perfect number. But in a regime shift, timing tops is not the main skill. Positioning is. Because the paper market can be violent. It can smash. It can spike. It can shake you out with headlines and whipsaws and expert laughter. Volatility is a weapon. So separate your metal mindset into two buckets. Bucket 1. Core protection. This is the lifeboat. It's not for trading. You touch it only for major exchanges, generational assets, life-changing stability, or extreme necessity. Bucket 2. Tactical. If you're experienced, this is where you can rebalance, take some gains, or rotate a piece into other opportunities. But you never risk the core to win a trade. That one rule saves more people than any indicator. Now let's address the big fear hiding under the sell question. The fear is not, what if metals fall? The fear is, what if I miss the top? That is pride disguised as prudence, and pride is expensive in a transition. Because the biggest mistake in a breakdown is selling real money early and buying paper claims right before paper claims get repriced. Let me ask you a hard question. What are you measuring your metals against? If you are measuring gold against a currency that is losing purchasing power, you are using a melting ruler. If you are measuring silver against a currency that is being expanded to keep the debt machine alive, you are using a shrinking yardstick. So when you say, gold is up, it's not that gold got better. Gold stayed gold. The currency got weaker. That's the movie. Now I want you to picture the next part because this is where the story gets spicy. Monetary breakdowns don't happen in a clean line. They happen in phases. Phase 1, denial. Temporary, transitory, nothing to see. Phase 2, distraction. Everyone chases entertainment markets and ignores the boring signals. Phase 3, policy shock. Something breaks. Authorities respond. New distortions appear. Phase 4, normalization. People accept a lower standard quietly and call it the new normal. Phase 5, acceleration. Confidence drops faster. The pace surprises even professionals. Here's the cliffhanger. Most people try to sell metals at the exact moment between Phase 3 and Phase 5, when volatility is highest, headlines are loudest, and the crowd is most emotional. That is where weak hands get harvested. So what do you do instead? You build a plan. Not a prediction, a plan. And your plan needs friction built into it, because the real world is not a spreadsheet. There are spreads, taxes, premiums, delays, limits, availability. Paper trades instantly, physical doesn't. This is why price and access are not the same thing. A quote on a screen is an opinion. A coin in your possession is priority. And when the public mood flips, priority is everything. Now let's talk about the mental trap that ruins good people. Gold goes up, you feel smart. Gold goes down, you feel stupid. That emotional loop is a fiat mindset. A real money mindset measures ounces, not applause. So instead of asking, should I sell because the price feels high? Ask this. Has the system healed? Has the debt load shrunk? Has money creation stopped? Has trust returned? Has the incentive to debase disappeared? If the answer is no, then what changed? A chart moved. That's it. Now let's bring in silver, because silver is the one that messes with your emotions. Silver is smaller than gold. It's more volatile. It can get pushed around harder in the short term. It will rally when you're cautious and dump when you finally feel confident. That's normal. But that same volatility is what makes silver explosive in a transition. When silver gets attention, it doesn't move politely. It moves like a door kicked open. And when it moves, the affordable lifeboat gets crowded fast. So here are the 2 comment questions I want you to answer, because your answers tell me where this community is mentally. First, do you think in price targets, or do you think in what metals can buy? Be honest. One word, targets or ratios. Second, if you could exchange metals for one real asset in the next chapter, what is it? Land, a home, a business, equipment, energy, something else? Drop it below. I read those and it shapes what I cover next. Now let's go even deeper into the exit question, because people confuse exit with cashing out. Exit doesn't mean going back into paper. Exit means converting stored purchasing power into productive ownership when the world offers you a bargain. Think like this. Gold is not the end. Gold is the bridge. The end is control. Control of your shelter, your income, your time, your family stability, your ability to operate without begging for permission. So what does an exchange opportunity look like? It looks like a moment when real assets are cheap in gold terms. A moment when the crowd is confused, stressed, or forced to sell. A moment when financing is tight and paper credit is expensive. A moment when someone with real money can buy without leverage. That's when hard money becomes leverage, not debt leverage, optionality leverage. Now, if you want a simple checklist that keeps you out of trouble, use this 3 yeses rule. You exchange a portion only when: yes 1, the ratio is favorable. Yes 2, the asset is high quality and actually available. Yes 3, your personal situation improves, more stability, more control, less stress. If you have all 3, you act calmly. If you don't, you wait. Patience is a weapon in a transition, and the system tries to break your patience with volatility. Now, I'm going to warn you about a fake signal that tricks people into selling too early. It's the feeling of being up a lot. When metals surge, your brain wants closure. It wants a win. It wants to lock it. But lock it into what? Into the same currency unit that is being diluted to keep the machine running? That's not locking. That's swapping a life jacket for a receipt. If you truly want to lock a win, lock it into something that can't be printed. Debt-free shelter, productive land, a business that generates cash flow, tools that produce value, skills that increase income. Those are locks. Now let's talk about the world behind the charts, because this is the part mainstream talk avoids. The biggest conflict now is not only geopolitical, it's financial. It's about trust. Who holds whose debt? Who depends on whose currency? Who can exit without detonating their own position? When confidence shifts, flows shift. And when flows shift, safe assets get redefined. That's why watching official statements is less useful than watching behavior. Behavior tells the truth. Now I'm going to give you a do this, not that sequence that's simple enough to write on a note and actually follow. Do this. Keep a core physical position you can access. Not that. Don't lever it. Don't borrow against it just to chase another trade. Do this. Track ratios monthly, not daily. Not that. Don't treat the chart like a slot machine. Do this. Build a written plan for what you want to acquire and at what ratios you will start exchanging. Not that. Don't wait for the news to tell you it's safe. The news is always late. Do this. Keep some liquidity for life. Bills, emergencies, flexibility. Not that. Don't force a sale because you have no cash buffer. Forced decisions are expensive decisions. Now, I want to address one more thing. The obsession with predicting the exact moment the system breaks. You don't need to predict the day. You need to recognize the direction. When the incentives are aligned toward devaluation, your metals are not a bet. They are a hedge against policy, a hedge against a credibility cycle, a hedge against the quiet tax of inflation. Now, here's the part that makes people uncomfortable, because it's where the real exit strategy becomes clear. The sell moment most people imagine, one big top, one perfect dump, one clean cash out, is a fantasy. Transitions don't give you one clean door. They give you multiple windows. And those windows open when the crowd is forced, not when the crowd is comfortable. So you exchange in tranches. You don't unload everything. You take advantage of mispricings as they appear, and you keep your core protection until you have replaced it with something stronger. Now I'll give you a concrete thought experiment that makes the concept stick. Imagine a future where an average home can be purchased for a small number of gold ounces. Imagine farmland priced in ounces. Imagine productive businesses priced in ounces. In that world, you are not taking profit. You are converting stored purchasing power into a machine that produces value. That is how families rebuild in the next chapter. Now, let me give you the final cliffhanger, the one that ties all of this together. Most people are preparing for price moves. Very few are preparing for rule changes. In a system under stress, rules change. Controls, taxes, restrictions on what can be bought, where, and how. I'm not saying any specific rule is guaranteed. I'm saying the pattern is real. When confidence breaks, authorities reach for control. And that means the exit can be constrained not by your desire, but by what the system allows that week. So if you're holding metals, you're not only holding value, you're holding optionality. You're holding the ability to move when others can't. And that's why selling your optionality too early can be catastrophic. So here's the punchline. When should you sell your gold and silver as the monetary system breaks down? Not when the chart looks scary. Not when the price feels high. Not when a commentator tells you to take profits. You exchange when ratios give you a historic deal on real assets. You exchange when it increases control, stability, and productive ownership. You exchange in tranches, not in panic. And until those moments arrive, you treat metals as protection first. If you want a follow-up where we map specific ratios to watch, homes to gold, stocks to gold, land to gold, and how to build an exchange ladder based on different budgets, tell me in the comments. I'll build it around what you actually want. And again, subscribe, because the next phase rarely announces itself politely. It hits, and then everyone acts surprised.